Something about being a kid was very peaceful, and it wasn't your environment or whatever was happening. It was something about you. You did not have a sense of control. You were sort of just flowing with life. It was only after you have been taught by a teacher that told you that you have to be aware of what he or she is saying that you have created a sense of center which is controlling. The teacher taught you that you should be aware of whatever the teacher is saying. And whenever you are not aware of whatever the teacher is saying, the teacher told you that you're distracted. You shouldn't be distracted. That's something you shouldn't do. And in that moment, a split happened. Awareness was no longer allowed to just flow freely. The mind was now trying to dominate the natural flow of awareness. The mind is saying, I shouldn't daydream, but I need to be aware of what the teacher is saying. And the mind is simply not built in a way that it's not natural for the mind to do this. But we still try to dominate whatever is natural. So we were conditioned to get better at this. And even in meditation retreats, people are being taught to be focused and focused on a specific point and not to be distracted. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this, because I truly believe that in a certain stage, this can be helpful. But it's just a door, it's just a pathway, but it's not the ultimate truth. It's not the destination. So if you want to arrive at the destination, you need to understand this. In that moment when the teacher told you that you need to be aware of what he or she is saying and that you shouldn't be distracted, that's when a split happened. So if you want to be free again, basically, to be very direct, you need to allow yourself to be distracted again. And now something amazing happens when you're allowing yourself to be distracted. The ego starts to flip out, because the ego is saying, like, what do you mean being distracted? It's not the goal. Like, isn't that what everybody is trying to avoid? I even had a comment of someone saying underneath a short that I was making a short where I was saying that distraction, when distraction is allowed, true meditation blossoms. And somebody was commenting like he doesn't get it, because like, what's the point? Isn't meditation about strengthening your focus until you're like super focused and super conscious and no longer distracted by anything? That's the ego. It's trying to be the meditator. The point isn't to strengthen your awareness, to strengthen your attention, to be more aware, to be more focused and more concentrated. It's simply to let go of control. What happens when you let go of control? When you're even allowing distraction? In that moment when you allow distraction, you become aware of whatever you are distracted by. So therefore, you no longer call it distraction. The word distraction is an invention that you're just abandoning. You allow your awareness to flow freely. When the mind is no longer trying to control the natural flow of awareness, then that's when you can actually taste the true taste of life again. And that's when creativity can come into you. So, and when we in practice, this looks like this. Let's say you're just sitting here, eyes open, and I'm aware of a wall. Now, usually we think, I want to discipline my mind, so I want to stay aware of the wall. In that moment, when I tell myself that I'm supposed to stay aware of the wall, That's when the suffering starts, because the mind is trying to dominate the natural flow of awareness. The natural flow of awareness cannot be beaten, so therefore what's going to happen naturally is at some point my mind is going to go there, and now I'm aware of a bottle of water. Now usually if I would try to discipline my mind, I would say, no, I shouldn't be aware of that, go back to the wall. It's the same thing with be aware of the breath. Oh no, I'm thinking again, go back to the breath. Oh no, I'm thinking again, go back to the breath. Hopefully at some point I will no longer be distracted by the mind. Go back to the breath. But what happens when you're no longer calling the thought a distraction? You're aware of the thought. You use the thought as a meditation object. And then the thought will drift off and think about something else. There's no fight, there's no resistance, there's no attempt to control this. There's nobody saying in the mind that this is a distraction, that you should be aware of something else. And that's when the inner stillness, the true inner stillness, is starting to arise. Because there's no fight anymore. There's no resistance anymore. And when there's no resistance anymore, that's when the center is dissolving and thoughts are allowed to come as they want to come. That's the natural flow of awareness. And then, because there's no fight, thoughts can naturally stop. And then you naturally become aware of noises, sensations. And then you also be distracted of that. And then all of a sudden something is loosening up and your consciousness is starting to get bigger. Like scientists have found out that when your brain activity is going down, then in your experience, the experience is becoming bigger. You experience more as the brain is becoming quieter. It's a paradox. But that's the experience when the mind is no longer trying to dominate the natural flow of awareness. So and that's when people are talking about a third eye opening. Because they start to see visions and colors, and they're basically starting to trip. But it's not bad for you. It is connecting you to the universe, because you have to see it like this. You don't have to, but that's how I'm seeing it. What makes us separate from the universe is this. When we say, I need to be aware of this, so we isolate something from the rest of the universe, and that's what we're constantly doing. And this isolation creates the sense of separation, but when you're no longer trying to focus on this thing, try to separate your work life from your private life, trying to separate this thing that you are supposed to do from all the other things that you could do. This act of isolating whatever you're supposed to do from everything else is creating the sense of separation. But as soon as you're allowing distraction, and you're no longer calling it distraction, but you simply call it the natural flow of life, that's when this isolation is starting to just fade away, and it's opening up, and there's just awareness of wholeness. And in this wholeness you start to feel a non-separation with everything. And somehow that's when you start to see colors in your mind. And synchronicities start to happen. You no longer have to do something in order to manifest things. That's just when everything becomes effortless. So it's basically simple. But there are people who are suffering from their conditions, and the ego is so afraid that it cannot just simply allow distraction to happen. In those cases, I'm saying it's okay to start by being aware of the breath, but don't use the breath, don't use this awareness of breath as something to get better at. Awareness of breath isn't like a sword that you need to sharpen. It is just a reminder for the mind to say, you're stable here, you have something to hold on to, it's still stable, you're still here. But still, you can be distracted by thoughts, so-called distraction. And when the ego feels unsafe, you can go back to the breath and just know, okay, I'm here. But gradually, you can even let go of the breath. And then you just open up as you're letting go of control.